The snow had begun falling 3 hours ago, soft at first, then with increasing fury, until the grounds beyond Crestwood Manor resembled a frozen wasteland. Linnea Colborne pressed herself deeper into the hollow of an ancient oak, her thin evening slippers soaked through, her fingers numb inside gloves never designed for such cold. The pale blue silk of her engagement ball gown offered no protection against the wind that cut through her like 1,000 tiny blades. She should go back inside. The announcement had been made. 300 guests had raised glasses to toast the union between Lord Aldrich Crestwood and Lady Linnea Colborne. Her father had smiled that desperate, relieved smile, the smile of a man whose gambling debts had finally found a solution, even if that solution was selling his daughter to a monster. But she couldn't return, not after what she'd overheard. Lord Aldrich's voice drifted through her memory, speaking to his solicitor with casual cruelty. The Colborne girl will serve her purpose. Once married, I'll have complete control of the estate. As for the girl, she'll learn that a wife's place is silent obedience. If she proves troublesome, there are private institutions that specialize in managing difficult women. She had fled through a servant's entrance, while guests celebrated her doom. Now, 20 minutes later, she was beginning to realize she might have traded one death for another. Linnea was 24, ancient by society's standards. She'd been considered pretty once, in a quiet way. Chestnut hair, gray-green eyes that people called thoughtful, when kind, and too serious, when not. Her first season at 18 had shown promise, but after her father's gambling destroyed them, suitors had evaporated. By her third season, she was invisible. Lord Aldrich had appeared like a dark miracle. Wealthy, titled, inexplicably interested in plain, penniless Linnea. Her father wept with relief. Her mother called it providence. Linnea had known from the first moment Aldrich's cold eyes assessed her like property that it was neither. The wind howled. Her vision blurred at the edges, hypothermia setting in. She should stand, should move, and should force herself back toward the manor. But some stubborn part of her simply couldn't. Perhaps this was better. A quiet ending rather than years of silent obedience. Her eyes drifted closed. She wasn't certain how much time passed. The cold had stopped hurting. She felt almost peaceful, floating in a white void where Aldrich's voice couldn't reach her. Then, boots crunching on snow. A voice, deep and alarmed. Good God, is someone there? She managed a small sound. Then hands lifted her, warm, impossibly warm, carrying her against a chest that radiated heat. Stay awake. The voice was commanding, aristocratic. You will not die in my woods. I forbid it. Through fading consciousness, she caught a glimpse of him. Dark hair dusted with snowflakes, a jaw carved from granite, eyes the color of aged whiskey, burning with intensity. This wasn't Lord Aldrich. Who? She whispered. Questions later. Survival first. Then warmth hit her. They were inside somewhere. She heard voices, rapid orders. Hot water bottles, blankets. Send for Dr. Hartley immediately. She was lowered onto something soft before a roaring fire. The last thing she saw was his face, striking, aristocratic, watching her with an expression she couldn't decipher. Then darkness claimed her. Lorcan Ashworth, 7th Duke of Ravenmore, stood before the fire in his study, trying to make sense of the evening. He'd been returning from a tedious card party when his horse startled near the old oak. He'd expected a fallen branch, not a woman in a ball gown, curled in the hollow, her lips blue, her skin cold as marble. The nearest entertainment tonight was Crestwood Manor. Lord Aldrich's engagement ball, an event to which Lorcan had certainly not been invited, given their mutual hatred since Eton. Was this woman connected to that? His grandmother swept in, silver hair plaited, blue eyes sharp. Who is she? I don't know yet. The eastern boundary leads toward Crestwood Manor. Ottilie settled into a chair. Lord Aldrich's engagement was announced tonight. You think she's connected? A woman in a ball gown doesn't wander into a snowstorm without reason. After she left, Lorcan remained by the fire. What had this woman been running from? And why did he desperately want to know? Linnea woke to warmth and confusion. The bed was impossibly soft, the linen scented with lavender. This was not Crestwood Manor. Memory returned. The announcement, Aldrich's horrible words, the desperate flight, the cold, then arms lifting her, a voice forbidding her to die. You're at Thornhaven Hall, a maid explained. The Duke of Ravenmore's estate. His Grace found you in the storm. The Duke of Ravenmore, Lord Aldrich's most hated enemy. Lorcan Ashworth thinks himself above us, Aldrich had sneered. I'd give anything to see him humbled. She was in her fiancé's rival's home. A knock announced the Duke himself. In morning light, she saw him properly. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair swept back from aristocratic features. Handsome in a way that made sensible thoughts difficult. Lady Colborne, his voice was measured. I trust you're feeling better. He knew her name. Your Grace, I must apologize for the imposition. If you could provide transport to a coaching inn. The roads are impassable. Dr. Hartley has forbidden travel for 3 days. He paused. You are not going anywhere. The words should have felt like a trap, but his tone held concern, not command. I know who you are, he continued. Lord Aldrich's fiancée, which raises the question of what you were doing, fleeing through a snowstorm toward my estate. I wasn't running toward anything. I was simply running. From what? She couldn't tell this stranger everything. From a situation that had become intolerable. Lady Colborne, were you attempting to harm yourself? The question struck like a blow. No, I simply didn't care enough to prevent it. Something flickered in his expression. Recognition, perhaps. My mother died 6 months after my father. They said fever, but I suspect she simply stopped fighting. He paused. The distinction matters to me. Before she could respond, he moved toward the door. Rest. We'll speak this afternoon. My grandmother will want to meet you. Why are you helping me? Lord Aldrich is your enemy. He paused. Because when I found you, you looked like someone who had given up hope entirely. I find myself unwilling to send anyone back to whatever could create such hopelessness. Then he was gone. The Dowager Duchess Ottilie was formidable, 73, silver-haired, with blue eyes that missed nothing. Lord Aldrich discovered your absence around 2, she informed Linnea over tea. He's told everyone you wandered outside in fever-induced confusion. He's playing the concerned fiancé convincingly. And people believe him? For now. But he's sent men searching. He'll know you're here by tomorrow. Linnea's stomach twisted. Then I should leave before causing more trouble. Leave to where? You have no money, no family who would shelter you against Lord Aldrich, no friends powerful enough to oppose him. Ottilie's gaze was unflinching. You have nowhere to go. I know, Linnea whispered. However, you're currently a guest of the Duke of Ravenmore. That carries protections. Lord Aldrich cannot simply drag you away without creating scandal. He could claim I'm confused, not in my right mind. He could try. But we are not without influence. Ottilie paused. The question is what you want. What did she want? For months, her wants had been irrelevant. I don't want to marry him, she said quietly. He's cruel. I overheard him telling his solicitor that if I proved troublesome, he'd have me committed until I learned obedience. I see. Ottilie's voice went cold, not toward Linnea, but toward the man they discussed. I can't prove it, his word against mine. I would believe you. Lorcan stood in the doorway, expression carved from stone. Lord Aldrich threatening to commit his fiancée if she doesn't show obedience. Why am I not surprised? He entered, positioning himself by the fireplace. We were at Eton together. He tormented a younger boy, Thomas Pemberton, until the boy tried to hang himself. Aldrich faced no consequences. His family's money ensured silence. Linnea's teacup rattled. I know what kind of man he is, Lorcan continued, and I am not sending you back to him. We need strategy, Ottilia said. Lady Colborne is legally engaged. Simply refusing to return her isn't sustainable. Then we find a sustainable solution. Her father's debts can be repaid. I'll cover them myself. Linnea stared at him. Why? You don't owe me anything. Some things should be done because they're right. His voice was firm. You'll remain here as our guest. Any attempt by Lord Aldrich to remove you will be met with our full opposition. The scandal will be his problem. Let him explain why his fiancée fled into a snowstorm. Linnea looked at these strangers, who had become her unlikely champions. I don't understand any of this, she said. You have no obligation to help me. Lorcan crossed the room and knelt before her chair. Linnea, I need you to start believing that you deserve good things, that kindness can be genuine, that not every offer comes with a price. Her eyes burned. That's a large request. I have faith in you. Lord Aldrich arrived the next morning, his carriage cutting through the snow like a guillotine blade. Linnea watched from her window, fingers gripping the curtain until her knuckles whitened. Then she straightened her spine and descended to the study. The tableau was theatrical. Lorcan stood behind his desk. Ottilia occupied a chair by the fire, and Aldrich, golden, polished, his blue eyes fixed on Linnea with intensity that made her skin crawl. My darling, his voice dripped honeyed concern. Thank God you're safe. The fever must have caused confusion, wandering into a storm like that. I didn't have a fever, Linnea said quietly. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise at her contradiction. He recovered smoothly. You must have misheard something, or hallucinated. Come, my carriage is waiting. Lady Colborne is not well enough to travel, Lorcan cut in. With respect, Ravenmore, she is my fiancée. She is my guest. My physician advises against travel. I have my own physician waiting. That won't be necessary. The two men faced each other, Aldrich beautiful in a cold, calculated way. Lorcan darker, rougher, somehow more real. I overheard you, Lord Crestwood, Linnea said, surprised by her own steadiness. In your study, discussing how you'd manage me, institutions for difficult women. The mask slipped. For one moment, she saw cold fury, calculating cruelty. Then it smoothed over. You must have misheard. She didn't mishear, Lorcan said flatly. I've known you 20 years, Crestwood. I know exactly what you are. This is absurd. The contracts are signed, engagements can be broken, Ottilia observed calmly, not without consequences. Aldrich's eyes swung to Linnea. Break this engagement, and your reputation is destroyed. I'll call in your father's debts immediately. You'll have nothing. Everything he said was true, but staying with him meant losing herself entirely. Lady Colborne remains here, Lorcan said quietly. And if you try to force the issue, I'll expose every secret you've buried, starting with Thomas Pemberton. Aldrich went pale. That's ancient history. There were witnesses, people who might speak given motivation. Silence stretched tight. This isn't over, Aldrich finally whispered. You have no idea what you've started. I think I do. Leave my home. Now. Aldrich's smile was terrible, promising retribution. We are engaged, Lady Colborne. I always collect what I'm owed. He swept out. Moments later, his carriage departed. Linnea released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Well, Ottilie said, that was bracing. Tea? The weeks that followed settled into a rhythm both comforting and strange. Linnea spent mornings reading in Lorcan's extraordinary library: philosophy, history, economics. They discussed her reading over breakfast, debates that sometimes lasted until Ottilia pointedly reminded them of other obligations. Afternoons varied: social calls with Ottilia, walks in the gardens, sometimes simply existing without purpose, a luxury she'd never been permitted. And evenings belonged to Lorcan. They'd fallen into habit of meeting after dinner, settling before the library fire with their books. Often they read in companionable silence. Other times, conversations ranged across subjects without pattern. She learned about his reform work in Parliament. He learned about her childhood, before her father's gambling destroyed everything. They learned each other, piece by piece. One evening, 3 weeks after her arrival, she found herself watching him instead of reading. He was absorbed in some parliamentary report, firelight playing across features that had become achingly familiar. She knew now that he ran his hand through his hair when frustrated, that his jaw tightened when angry, that his eyes crinkled at the corners when genuinely amused. "You're staring," he observed without looking up. Heat rose to her cheeks. "Apologies. I was thinking about you. Always. You. About how strange this all is," she said instead. 3 weeks ago I was preparing to marry a man who viewed me as property. Now I'm living in his enemy's home, reading about crop rotation, having actual conversations with a duke who values my thoughts. Which part feels unreal? Mostly the part where someone is kind without wanting anything in return. He set down his report. "I do want something." Her heart stuttered. "What?" "I want you to stop looking at me like I'm going to transform into a monster. I understand why you're wary, but it's exhausting for both of us." His voice was gentle but serious. "I am not Lord Aldrich. You are a guest who can leave whenever she wishes, who can say whatever she thinks, who owes me nothing. You're paying my father's debts. A business arrangement. No strings. There are always strings. Not this time." They looked at each other across the firelit library. "I'm trying," she said quietly, "to trust you. But it's difficult." "I know. Take whatever time you need." A week later, Ottilie proposed something outrageous. "Absolutely not," Linnea said flatly. "It's just a small gathering," Ottilie protested. "The Countess of Bramwick's winter salon, where everyone will whisper about the woman who fled her engagement and is living in the Duke of Ravenmore's home. Precisely why you must attend. Lord Aldrich controls the narrative, telling everyone you suffered a nervous collapse, that you're fragile and unstable. The longer you hide, the more credible his version becomes." "She has a point," Lorcan said from the doorway. "A public appearance demonstrates you're not the confused invalid he's describing." "I'll accompany you," he continued. "We present a united front. Anyone who wants to attack you goes through us first." Despite everything, Linnea felt her lips twitch. "You really do hate him." "With passion. Come to the salon. Let London draw their own conclusions." The Countess of Bramwick's salon glittered with candlelight and crystal. Perhaps 60 guests mingled, their conversations humming beneath a string quartet. Linnea stood at the entrance, Lorcan's arm solid beneath her gloved hand. "Breathe," he murmured. "They're just people. People who are staring. Let them. You look magnificent." She did. Ottilie had ensured that. Deep emerald velvet that made her eyes luminous, finer than anything she'd worn in years. The evening proved strange. She'd expected hostility. There was some, whispered conversations that died when she approached. But there was also unexpected kindness, women who asked about her interests rather than her scandal. And through it all, Lorcan remained nearby, watchful, ready. Then Lady Isadora Crestwood approached, beautiful, cold, unmistakably Aldrich's cousin, The Duke of Ravenmore and his charity case. How touching. Lady Isadora, Lorcan said flatly, no one invited you into this conversation. Privilege of being Aldrich's cousin. Her gaze raked Linnea with contempt. So this is the girl who's caused all the fuss. And yet, here you are, Linnea heard herself say, proving good taste doesn't run in the family. Lady Isadora's eyes narrowed. You'll regret that. Your cousin showed me exactly what he is. Perhaps look closer before aligning yourself with his cause. Ottilie materialized perfectly. Isadora, Lady Bramwick is looking for you. Something about a card debt? The dismissal was expert. Lady Isadora retreated, venomous. In the carriage home, Linnea sagged against the seat. You're smiling, Lorcan observed. I talked back to Lord Aldrich's cousin, in public. She laughed incredulously. 6 months ago, I couldn't express a preference for flowers at my own engagement party. You were magnificent. I was terrified. Those aren't mutually exclusive. He leaned forward. Tonight, you showed everyone, including yourself, that you're not fragile. That matters enormously. She met his gaze. You've given me my voice back. My sense of self. With Aldrich, I felt myself shrinking. Here, I feel like I'm becoming more. The charged silence stretched between them. I'm glad, he said finally, voice rough. 2 weeks after the salon, Lorcan delivered unwelcome news. Lord Aldrich has been implying improper conduct between us, building a narrative. The honorable fiancée whose confused bride was seduced by his rival. That's ridiculous. We've been entirely proper. He doesn't need proof, just enough doubt. Lorcan's expression was serious. We need to make decisions about your future. My options? Formally break the engagement and weather the scandal. Leave England entirely. He hesitated. Or we remove the scandal by giving it a different ending. She stared, not comprehending. The reason Aldrich's insinuations have power is because there's no legitimate explanation for your presence here. But if you were engaged to me, those questions evaporate. Her breath caught. A fake engagement. Strategic, with the understanding it can be dissolved whenever you wish, no consequences. Why would you do this? It binds you too. I have no interest in pursuing marriage, never have. This serves us both. You get protection, I get gossips off my back about finding a wife. She searched for hidden strings, found nothing but sincerity. You truly don't want anything? Only that you start believing you deserve good things. She looked at this man who'd pulled her from snow, who'd stood against Aldrich, who'd given her books and conversation and space to become herself. How long would it last? As long as you need. 6 months, a year. We announce it publicly, attend events together. When you're ready, we end it amicably. And what's expected of me? Nothing beyond what we're already doing. Conversation, companionship. Tell me if you ever feel trapped. You're nothing like a cage. The words escaped unbidden. Is that a yes? He asked quietly. She thought of Aldrich still plotting, her father's debts, the whispers everywhere. Then she thought of Lorcan, how he listened, challenged her thinking, made her feel worth protecting. Yes, I'll agree to this arrangement. His smile was like sun breaking through clouds. The engagement was announced the following week. Society's reaction was everything they'd hoped. Shock, intrigue, and most importantly, a complete reframing of the narrative. Lady Colborne wasn't Aldrich's confused, fever-addled fiancée. She was the woman who'd chosen Ravenmore over Crestwood, a delicious scandal that painted Aldrich as the rejected party. Linnea found herself enjoying the role more than expected. Attending events on Lorcan's arm felt natural now. They developed a rhythm, shared glances, inside jokes, the easy communication of people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. Society believed their engagement because it looked real, because Linnea realized with growing alarm it was beginning to feel real. She caught herself watching for his arrival at breakfast, counting the hours until their evening conversations, noticing how her pulse quickened when he smiled, when he leaned close to whisper something wry about their fellow guests, when his hand brushed hers during a dance. She was falling in love with him. The realization terrified her. After everything, after Aldrich, after learning how dangerous it was to trust, she was doing it again. Believing in a man's kindness, hoping for something good. But Lorcan wasn't Aldrich. Lorcan, who had carried her from the snow, who had stood against his rival to protect a stranger, who spent evenings discussing philosophy, who valued her opinions, who made her laugh, who looked at her sometimes with an intensity that made her wonder if she was alone in these feelings. One evening, 2 months into their arrangement, they attended a ball at Lord Westbrook's estate. The evening had been pleasant. Dancing, conversation, the usual social theater. But as they waited for their carriage, snow beginning to fall softly around them, Lorcan turned to her with an expression she couldn't read. "Linnea." "Yes?" He seemed to struggle for words, unusual for him. "This arrangement, it's working well." "It is. Perhaps too well." He paused. "I find myself forgetting it's temporary." Her heart hammered. "Lorcan, I know we agreed this was strategic, business. But somewhere along the way," he broke off, running a hand through his hair. "I need to be honest with you. I'm not pretending anymore. When I hold your hand, when I dance with you, when I spend every evening in your company, it's not performance. Not for me." The confession hung between them, fragile and enormous. "You don't have to say anything," he added quickly. "I know this complicates things. I know you have every reason to distrust declarations from men. I just couldn't keep pretending I was pretending." Linnea looked at him, snow catching in his dark hair, vulnerability raw in his eyes. "I'm not pretending either," she whispered. His expression shifted. Surprise, then hope, then something deeper. "You're not?" "I've been terrified to admit it, even to myself. After Aldrich, I swore I wouldn't trust again, wouldn't hope." She swallowed. "But you're not him. You're nothing like him. And I..." She didn't finish. Lorcan closed the distance between them, his hands cupping her face with infinite gentleness. "May I?" She nodded. The kiss was soft, questioning. Nothing like the possessive claim she might have expected. It was an invitation, not a demand. She kissed him back. The weeks that followed were the happiest of Linnea's life. Their engagement was no longer a fiction, though they hadn't announced that publicly. They were courting genuinely now, discovering each other in new ways. Stolen kisses in the library, hands intertwined during evening walks, conversations that lasted until the fire burned low. Tilly watched their transformation with insufferable smugness. "I knew it," she declared. "From the moment he carried you through that door, I knew." "You knew nothing of the sort," Lorcan said, but he was smiling. Then Lord Aldrich struck. The letter arrived on a gray February morning, not addressed to Linnea, but to her father. It contained evidence, carefully fabricated, suggesting Lord Colborne had engaged in financial fraud, enough to ruin him completely, enough to send him to prison. "It's blackmail," Lorcan said flatly, reading the accompanying note. "Aldrich will destroy this evidence if Linnea returns to him and honors their original engagement." Linnea felt the blood drain from her face. "He can't. My father never..." "Of course he didn't. The evidence is fabricated, but it's convincing enough to cause serious damage before the truth emerges." Lorcan's jaw was tight with fury. "Aldrich knows we'd never let your father face imprisonment for crimes he didn't commit. So I have to go back to him. No." The word was absolute. "We'll find another way." "What way?" "He has the evidence. He has the power. I have power too." Lorcan met her eyes. "And I have something Aldrich doesn't expect. I have leverage. What leverage? Thomas Pemberton. His voice was grim. I've been gathering testimonies for months. Witnesses who saw what Aldrich did. Servants who were paid to be silent, but are willing to talk now. It's enough to destroy him socially, if not legally. He'd retaliate. He would. But here's the question. Does he hate me enough to risk his own destruction? Lorcan took her hands. We call his bluff. I send word that I have evidence too. That if he proceeds against your father, I proceed against him. Mutually assured destruction. And if he doesn't back down, then we fight. Together. The meeting took place at a neutral location, Lord Pemberton's townhouse, chosen deliberately. The father of the boy Aldrich had tormented, now willing to support their cause. Linnea insisted on attending. This is about my family. I won't hide while others fight my battles. Aldrich arrived with his solicitor, his expression calculating. When he saw Linnea, something ugly flickered in his eyes. My dear fiancée, how touching that you've come to negotiate your return. I'm not your fiancée, Linnea said clearly. I never was, really. I was property you thought you'd purchased. Such drama. You forget. I hold your father's fate in my hands. And we hold yours. Lorcan stepped forward, placing a thick folder on the table. Testimonies from 6 witnesses to the Pemberton incident. Sworn statements from servants you paid to be silent. And correspondence from your own hand, discussing how to cover it up. Aldrich's composure cracked. Those letters were stolen. Does it matter? They exist. They're detailed, and they'll destroy you. You wouldn't dare. The scandal would touch you too. Harboring another man's fiancée. I'll survive scandal. Will you survive being known as the man who drove a child to attempted suicide and paid to bury it? Silence stretched. What do you want? Aldrich's voice was barely controlled. The fabricated evidence against Lord Colborne, destroyed. The original engagement dissolved publicly, with a statement that you've graciously released Lady Colborne from her commitment, and you never contact her or her family again. And if I refuse, then tomorrow morning every newspaper in London receives copies of this folder. Aldrich looked at Linnea with pure hatred. You think you've won? You're marrying a man just as controlling as me. You've simply traded one cage for another. No. Linnea's voice was steady. Lorcan has never tried to control me. He's given me choices when everyone else took them away. That's the difference you'll never understand. Aldrich's solicitor whispered urgently in his ear. Finally, he nodded curtly. Fine, you'll have your dissolution. But don't expect me to forget this, Ravenmore. I'm counting on you remembering. Lorcan gathered the folder. Every time you consider harming anyone else, remember what happened when you tried to harm her. The engagement to Lord Aldrich was dissolved within the week. The announcement was carefully worded. Mutual decision, best wishes, no scandal. Society gossiped, of course, but the narrative favored Linnea. She had escaped a man who was rumored to be crueler than he appeared. She had found happiness with the Duke of Ravenmore, and now that happiness could be real. Marry me, Lorcan said. They were in the library, their library now, the place where everything important happened. Snow fell softly outside, a gentler echo of the storm that had brought them together. You've already asked me that, Linnea pointed out. The strategic engagement, remember? That doesn't count. I'm asking properly now. He took her hands. Linnea, I have loved you since you told me you weren't trying to die, just didn't care enough to prevent it. I have loved your intelligence, your courage, your refusal to be broken by circumstances that would have destroyed anyone else. I want to spend my life discussing philosophy with you, arguing about politics, watching you become whoever you want to be. Her eyes filled with tears. I love you too, she said. I've been afraid to say it, afraid it would disappear if I named it. It won't disappear. I won't disappear. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. Marry me. Not strategically. Really. Yes. The word came easily now. Yes. I'll marry you. The library at Thornhaven Hall was considerably more chaotic than it had been 3 years ago. Linnea sat in her favorite chair, a book abandoned in her lap, watching her husband attempt to prevent their 18-month-old son, Sebastian, from eating the pages of a first edition Descartes. No, darling, Lorcan said patiently. We read philosophy. We don't consume it literally. Sebastian responded by grabbing his father's nose. He has your determination, Linnea observed. He has your complete disregard for rare books. I have never disregarded a rare book in my life. You used that 16th century botany text as a coaster last week. It was already damaged. Sebastian, bored with his father's nose, made a determined crawl toward the fireplace screen. Lorcan intercepted him with practiced ease. Your mother arrives tomorrow, he said, settling their son on his lap. Something about wanting to see her grandson and also having opinions about the nursery decorations. Ottilie always has opinions. She's earned them. He smiled at her, that rare, transformative smile that still made her heart skip. She was right about us, after all. She was right about you. I was a gamble. The best gamble I ever took. He rose, Sebastian tucked against his shoulder, and crossed to her chair. Have I mentioned lately that I love you? Not in the last hour. Oversight. I love you, Linnea Ashworth. I love our chaotic, book-destroying son. I love the life we've built. She reached up to touch his face. I love you too. Even when you let Sebastian near the rare books. That was once. It was 3 times this week. Their son chose this moment to grab a fistful of his father's hair and yank enthusiastically. I think he's ready for his nap, Lorcan said with remarkable calm. After Sebastian was settled in the nursery with his nurse, they returned to the library together. The fire crackled softly. Snow had begun to fall outside, a gentle snow, nothing like the storm that had nearly killed her 3 years ago. Do you ever think about that night? Lorcan asked, reading her thoughts. When I found you? Sometimes. Usually when it snows. She leaned into his side. I think about how close I came to giving up entirely, how easily I could have died in that hollow. But you didn't. Because you forbade it, she smiled, very commanding of you. I'm a duke. Commanding is what we do. She laughed, a sound that had come easily these past 3 years. Thank you, she said quietly, for carrying me out of the snow, for fighting for me, for giving me a life I never dreamed possible. Thank you for staying, he replied, for choosing me, for making this house a home. They sat together as evening fell, their library warm with firelight and memories. Tomorrow would bring Ottilie's opinions and Sebastian's chaos, and all the wonderful complications of the life they'd built. Tonight, there was just this. 2 people who had found each other against all odds, in the hollow of an oak tree during a snowstorm, and who had chosen each other every day since. Some things were worth every complication. This was one of them.